Okay, so I've started this video 3 times. I can't decide what to talk about, partially because I'm just so incensed that I had to go through 4 different message boards and then finally find a YouTube video to figure out why my microphone wasn't working. P.S. The May update for the Surface Pro 4 screwed a whole lot of people's microphones, and it's because they updated the privacy permissions. Go make sure all of yours are set to on. Restart your machine. It should fix the issue. Let me save you some time. I like to come in with some type of idea of what the hell I'm going to talk about. And really, I'm struggling today because there's a lot of different directions I could go in. But I think I'm going to go with chasing the ever-elusive Muse, because I've been having some issues myself with just... It's not necessarily art block in the sense where I'm trying to, draw something, but nothing works. As in, you have plenty of ideas, but the actual process of drawing is not going well. I'm talking about that state of mind where you sit down, you do your warm-up, everything seems great, and you're like, yes, I'm gonna make the greatest art that ever was, and be the very best like nobody ever was. And then you go and you open your canvas, blank. Just like your brain. Every idea that you've ever had completely nope, gone. Completely. So, there's a few different ways to combat that. Prior to moments like that, I found, I don't remember where, I think it was Tumblr, a post of somebody saying that they kept, or it might have been Twitter actually, the creator of Sunstone, which is a wonderful comic. It is BDSM themed if anybody wants to avoid that, but, I mean, I think it's lovely. I think it was something I found possibly through him on Twitter, because he retweets a lot of stuff about art and artists and all sorts of fun stuff. And I can't pronounce his name, so I'll link him down below, because I can't. I'm terrible, and I apologize. But it's this idea of keeping a file full of ideas that aren't necessarily fully fleshed out ideas. They're just things that occurred to you. Like on mine, for example, I have an ongoing piece that I'm working on, and it has a tattoo that's in English text on the actual person that it's on, but it's sort of a departure from reality. So it's like, well, it kind of breaks the atmosphere I'm trying to have if I have just English text on there. And I found a couple of different options, and one, of course, is the Thebian alphabet. But then I found a post about, oh, this is how you convert English to Elven. And I went, oh, okay, that's kind of awesome. I like Tolkien, I like Elvish, so, yeah. But I wrote that down in my little list that I had in my phone, because that occurred to me while I was scrolling through Tumblr at, 2 a.m. like I do. And I knew I wouldn't remember it otherwise. And the idea is that you keep this, and it can be a Word document, it can be a physical piece of paper, it can be I use a list app on my phone. You come back once a month, and you go through it, and a lot of the times you'll see that the same exact idea will come up a bunch of different times, but maybe in different variations, and if you combine all those little variations together, you get one cohesive idea you can actually do something with. But in the moments where you're staring at your canvas and going, fuck, I don't know what to do, those can be incredibly helpful. So you can do that. In the actual moment, it sounds obvious and maybe a bit dumb or hokey, but go back to things that inspire you and keep a list of those too, as far as that goes. What I have, and a lot of different artists, it seems like, have this either digitally or physically. I have both. Have an idea file. I call it reference on my computer. It is full of every single reference image I've ever used or thought about using, which sounds like overkill, and I know it does, and that file's probably fucking massive at this point, but that is incredibly valuable whenever I'm, looking for something, anything to try and draw. And then the other option is a physical reference library, which I highly recommend as well. I have, let me just look over my bookshelf here. I have the super old How to Draw Manga books that I've been collecting since I was roughly 15. I've got numerous art books from movies. Like, what I can see from here is I have The Hobbit, Suicide Squad, The Dark World for Thor, and then Crimson Peak. You may have noticed a Tom Hiddleston theme in there. I've got that. I've got things that I personally specialize in, like Geico and Geisha. And then burlesque. I've got books from my favorite artists, including Luis Royo and Boris Vallejo and Julie Bell, as well as Alberto Vargas and Olivia Di Bernardis. I'm probably pronouncing her name terribly as well. But I have all this different stuff, is my point. And it's stuff that has inspired me at some point or another. And if I'm completely blanking out and just gone, there's that. There's also the option to watch movies, whatever. Just something that you remember that whenever you watched it, you really, really enjoyed it. You enjoyed some part of it. It may not be necessarily the material that inspires you, but while you're looking through it, some idea may hit you. It's that old problem of, it's a watched pot never boils and a watched canvas never gets an idea spilled on it, I guess. It's frustrating, but part of the creative process anyway. The other option, or rather, the other issue, is that if you're staring at a blank canvas, you've got no idea what to draw. You've gone through all of your references that seem appealing at the time. Nothing has occurred to you at all. It seems obvious, but is often the most difficult thing to possibly do, which is close the program and just walk away. Not forever, but set a timer, even, like for 30 minutes, or for an hour. Set it and just walk away from it and go do something else. Like, there's a lot of this, there's a lot of different names for it. A artist on Twitter, I can't remember if it's Jen Bartel or somebody else, but it's this idea of needing to fill your cup. It's very difficult to be able to create new things if you aren't filling your cup, so to speak. So this isn't a hard and fast rule, but for purposes of visualization, imagine your brain and all of its ideas are like a water tank on top of an apartment building. You dispense all of these ideas into different apartments, which are projects, and if that tank runs dry, then, well, there's nothing to put into said projects. So it may not be that you don't necessarily have an issue where looking at inspiration sources that have worked in the past work. It may just be that you're tired. Life is difficult, dude. Like, especially if you're doing art, which is it's such a weird thing, honestly, to try and explain to people. There's this idea that artists are either machines that just churn out art, especially if you put suffering into them, which is a whole other concept that really pisses me off. This idea that artists need to suffer to create great art, which is utter crap and not true at all. But if you don't have like-minded artist friends who understand when you're sitting here going, no, I want to draw, but I can't. Sometimes just muscling through it and trying to draw something will work, and other times it won't, and it's really a cause and effect, or cost and benefit, there you go, analysis of, is it going to cause me more mental strain and stress to sit here and try to muscle through this and just draw something from rote memory or from just copying something like doing figure drawing or whatever, or is it going to be better if I just close everything and walk away? sometimes I realize that's not necessarily an option. I don't know how many of you out there listening are professional artists, are taking commissions, are doing projects for class. I know that it's definitely not an option sometimes because, it's due tomorrow. It's due at 8 a.m. tomorrow, and if you don't get it in, you don't get paid, you fail your class, whatever. In the cases of that, what I did in college and what I still do now, whenever I have something like that I need to muscle through, is I will go and find a place completely removed from my usual workspace. It can be the university library, it can be your local library, it can be a coffee shop. I wouldn't recommend necessarily a friend's house or something like that, just because it's easy to be distracted, but something where you don't have the option to get distracted by chores. You don't have the option to get distracted by other projects. Sometimes your brain just needs a quiet environment where it can't really do anything else other than try to figure something out. So that may be of help too. And I realize that's not necessarily an option for everybody for whatever reason. So even just moving to a different room in your apartment or being in a different position, like in the room that you usually work in, could even help. If you usually face a window, face one of the walls instead. If you usually have incense or candles or whatever burning, which I typically do, try a different blend of whatever you usually use, or try not using indol, try essential oils for once. It's this kind of trying to shake your brain out of whatever rut it's stuck in. And the annoying part of all of that is that brains, despite not having those handy pain indicators like muscles do, they do get fatigued. And sometimes there's not a whole lot you can do about it except take 10 minutes, come back, try to work on the thing for 10 minutes, and then take another 10 minutes away, and keep hacking at it like that until something works. Another thing that seems to help a lot with artistic burnout, and also just is a good idea anyway, set a timer on your phone, on your computer. I know during NaNoWriMo, they make timers that lock your computer after 30 minutes for 5 minutes and then lead you through stretches or whatever, or just lock your computer for 5 minutes so that you have to not work on whatever you're working on for at least 5 to 10 minutes. I know you're sitting there going, dude, I'm in a groove here. If I stop, it'll all fall apart. It's tempting, I get that. But I used to think the exact same way as well, but more and more often I'm noticing that if I just do set my timer, even if I'm in a groove or whatever, if I stop for 10 minutes and go get some water, check on my cats, do whatever, it seems to help, and it's not as difficult to resume. I feel like we artists are incredibly superstitious people, just like actors tend to be, in the fact that we all have our personal thing where you're not supposed to say Macbeth. Like, I shouldn't do X whenever I'm going to draw. Even if or it's like I have a certain setup that I need to draw, or I have a certain pencil, and if I can't... The human brain likes to cling to weird stuff like that because we like cause and effect. We're wired that way. It's why we notice things like weather patterns and that sort of thing. But a lot of the time, those superstitions, while they can be comforting, can also be incredibly disabling if you give them too much credit. So, as difficult as it may be, try to shake it up as often as you can so you don't fall into those ruts of, oh, I have to use this program, oh, I have to use this pencil, I have to be in this place, I have to draw this subject. You'll benefit a lot if you just shake up your creative process, even if what you make isn't a masterpiece. Like, if you're a 2D artist, go out and get some Play-Doh even, and try sculpting something just for the hell of it. Or get one of the free digital sculpting programs. I can't remember what the name of the one that I used for a minute was, but there's free 3D sculpting programs you can try for your computer. Try something. chances are while you're fighting with that or playing video games or doing whatever, honestly, you'll figure out something that will make it so that you can maybe at least try to have something productive happen for the rest of your day. So, that's what I've got. My typical sign off is it's chaos, be kind, and I still really do stick by that. I hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe, all that mess. And as I put on my canvas here, hands are damn complicated bone gloves. So if you were just watching for the hands and not my rambling, I hope you enjoyed that as well. Have a good day or night wherever you're at, folks.